So yes, so today I'd like to kind of capture what we're trying to do right now at Africa's Talking for a very long time. Um, as we look at the history of AT, we've always provided APIs that have tried to capture the telecommunications industry and make them very simple for developers to access them rather through APIs. So I mean, we've traditionally had SMS, and you've probably used it at some point, maybe for a small project or something of the nature. Same thing with the USSD, voice, payments, and airtime. But now the interesting question, even as you look at this diagram, is always like, what is all of this? Like, what when you're sending these SMSs, when a user is dialing a USSD, what are they really doing? And how are we able to capture that? Now, based on just like our general footprint across the continent and the learnings from the different types of data we've collected over time, we came up with this new idea called Elarian. And this idea isn't the newest in the world per se, but in the way it works and the way that it and what it represents, especially for the African continent at this moment in time, we feel is very important. So essentially what Elarian is a custom engagement framework. What that essentially means is that we thought through it and said, with AT generally, it's like a pipe, just water passing through. You're sending SMSs to your customers, and all you care about is like how many SMSs were sent, how many failed, let me top up my account, things like that. But we wanted to kind of have the developer think about something a bit deeper and something more meaningful, not only to them, but also the business itself. And this is captured in these 2 points. So the first thing is that we are trying to provide a customer-centric view of the data, by unifying all these different touch points. So think about it from this perspective, that for every, let's say your number is, sorry, the dogs around me. But think about it, every single number that dials a USSD code, or you send airtime to, or you send an SMS to, that individual number, if you really look at them, there are a myriad. There are so many different touch points you've had with them, right? You have multiple USSD sessions, multiple SMSs, multiple WhatsApp messages, multiple payments from this one number. So it's just a shifting of perspective away from the raw data, which is just focusing on the number of SMSs sent, and moving towards a client-based or a customer-based approach. The second thing that we also really focused on, and probably why I'm here today, is simplification of the developer's build process, right? So instead of writing code that's trying to, in a way or form, it's very system-oriented kind of design that what we do in terms of what we do. So like you're kind of just trying to fulfill particular requests most of the time in your code. And the thought of the customer comes a bit later, mostly in the UI section of things, but not in the backend section of things as much. And not that it's a bad thing, and we're not saying it's the worst programming model in the world. We are saying there's a better way for us to kind of write this software. And this is what we mean. We'll get to see a bit more of that slightly later. So we still do support like the general channels, so like the SMS, USSD, payments, all these different things are now just components of this Elarian thing. And what this Elarian thing does, it essentially provides a framework similar to Express, similar to Spring Boot, and it essentially provides this ability for developers to be able to look at their customers in a unified manner. When we say portable customer data, we essentially mean this data can be ported from one system to another in a very clean format. The next thing is tags. So we can think of tags as a segmentation tool. So what it allows you to do essentially is, segment your customers based on the number, for example, activity. So you can say for loyal customers, based on these metrics, they engaged me 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a week. This person should be labeled as a loyal customer, and this is all automated within your code. So in fact, you'll see a lot of the stuff I'm going to show you is one script level stuff. you don't end up having to write too much code. The next thing is metadata. So metadata behaves kind of like a DB, but it's a DB just for customer data. You could use it for other things, but it's really designed to work with customer data. So for example, if you have a phone number of a person you've been sending SMSs to, and then they make a payment, you can begin to attach different types of information. So you can say their birthday, you can find out their gender, you can find out different types of things and attach all of these different things into one mold. So instead of storing the data as like a table that has just very specific data on particular interactions and separate it from another table, and you're using like a foreign key to be able to map that on a traditional database, what this allows you to do is kind of like have each individual customer's data stored in a kind of slightly unstructured way, and then in the back we are the ones processing and making sure that you can be able to go through this data and come up with maybe different segments, different activities and things like that around them. The next thing is reminders. So reminders is a thing we do a lot when we're writing systems. You need to be able to remember when a person logged in, and then when's the last interaction, and mapping out all those things. So we are able to provide this natively within the SDK, essentially, and you will be able to, for example, you need to send it to every for someone's birthday, you would be able to, send them a message on their birthday, or 2 weeks after they logged into your application. 2 weeks after they logged into your application, you need to tell them like, hey, use my app a bit more and stuff like that. The next thing is wallets, which is very fascinating in my opinion, because I like money. So one of the big challenges when you're writing like payment systems is that, let's say, for example, you're kind of like a Glovo, right? And Glovo, what Glovo can do, Glovo normally has like credits. You can store credits, right? You can top up your account before, I think, something of the nature, and kind of having like mini wallets for every person's application. So what Elarian allows you to do is automatically create wallets for each of your customers by default. And then this is a very powerful way for you to be able to have customers put money with you. So it's very useful for stuff like fintechs and guys like that, because customers can top up their accounts. Let's say they're budgeting for the month for gas or for food. So they can top up their accounts. Let's say my monthly budget for food is 5,000 shillings eating out. So I can top up my account and forget about it. And every time I eat out, it just deducts from that share. The next thing is analytics. I think analytics will come talk about just a little bit later, but this is kind of like the core of the framework, and this diagrams start explaining a bit more. So unified customer data, all these different interactions on this side are kind of recorded and help you make better business decisions, especially for some of us, for some of the developers who kind of are also founders and are working for their own companies. It's a very powerful tool for them. And even for you as a developer working for a client, aligning yourself very deeply with business goals is something very important. The next thing is portable data. So this data can be ported from one point to another if necessary. Tags, as I mentioned, is the just ability to tag different group customers into different sections, so that you're able to perform particular activities. Metadata just essentially behaves like a DB, just like a NoSQL DB essentially. And then geo-distribution is something we're not ready yet with, but it should allow any application written on Elarian to essentially be compliant with like GDPR and all those things you don't think about until you go to deploy your application. All right, let's check out a demo. So I will kill this for a moment. Sorry. Ended up using a new machine today, so a lot of things are kind of still installing. But if anyone has any questions, I'm open to answer. I'll show you where the Android app comes in. But something just to keep in mind as well about like about how we kind of view ourselves. We've never been really like the Android guys before. but we kind of see like, we try to look at all these different applications, USSD or whatever, as just different touch points for you to interact with a customer. That's really what it is. And some of us may turn into like pure Android developers or Flutter developers to be able to deliver very unique experiences and very customized experiences for mobile apps and things like that. However, what you really want, at the end of the day, is that whether a customer reaches you via WhatsApp, reaches you via your Android app, your iOS app, on USSD, on voice, whatever it is they're doing, it's enhancing a core business metric, right? I think that's kind of like what we are trying to also share. That what we've noticed is that the companies that end up doing fantastically well are those who don't see the Android app as the be-all end-all, but as just one touch point in a myriad of possible touch points that you could create for your customer. I'm open to any questions. Just try to get a few things like running here. Yes. I'm chilling for questions. I think some things are still trying to, as you might assume, especially with Android Studio and a few other things running, things aren't as smooth. But I'm open to questions, and I'm also open to any suggestions as to what I've talked about just before. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for the explanation. And I'm interested to know, your session is more about these tools. So I'm interested to know what is Express and what is it used for?
So Express generally will provide a backend service for us and expose a bit of information on for us. So the kind of like for me, the way I've always kind of like seen the best way to build great applications is always to separate the most common functionality across the different touch points. So that means the features that a user will be accessing on Android, the features that a user will be accessing on USSD, on voice, all those places. How can I collapse them into a backend so that I don't have to rewrite it later on or end up having another team to do this? And one of the things that we tried to think through was like, we know Android developers may not want to spend so much time thinking about their backend, that maybe that's not their primary job. So how can we simplify the build process, especially for the backend, so that it's very simple, dead simple. In fact, in some way or form, you may not even need Express, but the reason I included it is because it may be more familiar compared to the rest of the code that you might see. Yeah, but yeah, it's to provide just that where all the messages are going to be sent, how we are going to be handling the customer data. That's where what Express will kind of be encapsulating in some way or form.
All right, thank you so much. So Benson is also asking, does one need a separate WhatsApp for business license? I don't know what he means, but that's the question.
Oh yeah, you can't use your normal WhatsApp number for business. It may not be ideal, but so when you come to AT and you want to access a WhatsApp business number that you can program, essentially you can try and think of it like an intelligent WhatsApp number. That often has its own cost. So definitely accessing these channels come at a cost, but it's often worth it, especially if you know what you can do with WhatsApp. WhatsApp is wild. It's crazier than SMS. You can actually pull off some interesting stunts with guys.
All right, thank you for answering.
No worries. Just some download. The internet where I am isn't amazing. a bit of downloads are still happening, but yeah. Yeah, I think last week is when we got our first that library for Africa stalking. So we're quite excited. We're hoping someone can also help us build one for Elarian. It works on RSocket, but I don't know if the RSocket guys have an implementation.
For the Dart library, is it open source?
Yes, it is.
Probably
actually
you can
yes, it's actually by the community, actually, which is very cool.
That's amazing. So probably after this, you can share with us that, so that we can share with others who are not present here, who might be interested to build on the open source library.
No worries, no worries. I think I actually have it here. Copy link. Eddie Kamau.
Yeah. Seen it. Thank you.
Awesome. I think also my downloads are ready. And are they? Okay, good. Android creates interesting challenges. But nonetheless, I think what I can start with the back end, and then we'll arrive at the front end. And then I'll provide kind of a basic overview of the project and what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, that can work. Thank you.
Right. So actually, let me stop share, then share again. And yep, fantastic. So this is a demo. This is a demo that mostly run by my friend Salama, one of our engineers. And essentially what this application is supposed to do is it's like a loyalty app, right? So generally you have an Android app, and then you kind of tap the button a couple of times. So we are assuming that is like every time a user made a sale, or it could be just a game where you just tap. And if you accumulate up to 10 taps, we send you like some money equivalent to the number of taps you made on your phone. Right. So this is kind of like how it looks like. I know I'm weird because I'm using a light theme, but bear with me. Let me just take it back. Something more visible, slightly more visible. So it's a lot of the boilerplate code is very simple. So you kind of just initiate your Express app, which is very simple. I hope guys know what Express is. Express is very simple. It just provides a backend service, a HTTP interface where you can call for your records. You can, and many of you as Android developers know how to call different parts of the API to essentially deliver this. However, what we are introducing here is this new idea here. Trying to blow it up a little. Called Elarian, and Elarian is very just similar to AT. You have to have your channels, like your and those different things, and I'll show you on the dashboard how that works. But what you'll notice is that the new methods we're introducing here. So the first method we're introducing is like there's a handle activity event. So this event, this function rather, is essentially able to like listen in on the activities and then keep track of each one of them up until the point when a user is able to. I'll share the repo as well, so don't freak out if you miss out on this. You're able to essentially track the events, and then once a particular limit is reached, you are able to like clear the data and move forward. Then there's a handle reminder event. So every time you create a reminder, so the reminder essentially is every time the user is tapping on that button, you're like, hey, remind me of the last time this person tapped the button and how many times they tapped the button, and then make an activity based off that, right? So So initially here we said remind us when remind us when the users reach this number of taps on the app, and then as you go lower and you're handling the reminder, you're like, okay, at this point, let's send the person the money and blow up their phone with some good money. There's nothing better than an M-Pesa message on a Saturday evening. So we have a couple of express routes here, but these just provide the basic stuff. So a simple authentication and a couple of things like that, and the usual express setup. But what you'll notice here is like this is Elarian doesn't use HTTP. That's one of the crucial things about the platform, right? So we don't have a HTTP interface. We created a live connection with the Elarian service. So whenever your app is running, so let me just actually get the app running. So what I would do here is just do npm start, and you'd get the traditional app listening, but the next thing you would get is Elarian connected. And what that means is that you have a live, it's like a phone call. So you think of HTTP, the way we use HTTP, it's kind of like using text messages, and TCP kind of provides a more phone call like experience. So as long as the call is on, everything should be fine. Let me just check on this other my build failed. Okay. I'll fix that as we go along. But that's essentially what it is. And then I think the next important thing to share is, we'll kind of head back here and move this bar. Yeah, all right, fantastic. So what we have here is like this will kind of like display our different engagements, the number of customers and things like that. This is the core Elarian dashboard. The weird thing about Elarian is that you have quite a few IDs and things like that to keep track of, but it's for good reason. So you have applications. So applications, you can think of them as campaigns, like even on Google Analytics or in any other service, you kind of have like a unique ID for the campaign you're running, regardless of the channels that you're using. And this is what this provides, the app ID. You have the org ID up here, which essentially just provides an identifier, like your username essentially, but for this specific organization that I'm working on. And the last thing that is important, and the most important of them all, is your API key. So you already have it set up, so we may not need to generate a brand new one. You're also able to create your own channels, and channels can be anything from sender IDs, WhatsApp numbers, Facebook Messenger bots, Telegram bots, voice numbers, and pay bills, right? So these are all things that you can kind of like onboard onto the service, and it will collect all the information around this and present it in a pretty simplified way. All right. So you guys can ask a few questions even as I try to sort out. I think a path is missing somewhere that I need to sort out. Just give me a second, but ask any questions. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much. There's one question from the chat by Benson. He's asking, is the data bundle hungry? I don't know what he means, but if you can answer, yes.
Not really, because we're sending very tiny bits of information. One of the things that we also encourage in a way or form is that we don't encourage you to have like Elarian running super live on your server. So the reason we're using Express on your app, so like the reason we're using Express is because the Express app, the server, when you've deployed it, there's no cost for you to like have it directly connected to Elarian. But for your Android app, for each of your users who has the app, if we leave that connection on, it creates a lot of like complications along the way, because every time the connection is terminated and any data is generated, there's a lot of like complicated wahala that needs to happen for you to like restore the connection successfully and not make the data turn out to be pretty bad. So what we try to do is we encourage that you should send the basic events as at a HTTP interface level, and then it goes into the app so that it's able to be registered as events, right? But nonetheless, yeah, I think that would be the better way. I'll show you how this one is kind of done, but just give me a few. There's something I just need to polish up, but I'm open to more questions as well.
Thank you for explaining. I have one question, especially about the point where you are capturing the customer engagements. So is there any GDPR limit that Elarian will be limited to?
Not at all. As long as you're within those, within the limitation, the regulation, right? So for some countries, it's a bit more complicated where you can't store any personal identifier, which makes it very difficult. The others, it's more location restricted. So like you're like, if you have users in Rwanda and you have users in Kenya, that data cannot live anywhere close to Rwanda. Everything has to live in Kenya. So these are things that we are now trying to abstract away from the developer. So like you should be worrying about where your data is stored, how your app is deployed. Like those are things that should be more of like the legal team's worry and less of your worry, compliance engineers, if those exist. But just give me a moment. Yeah, hopefully that kind of that provides some clarity.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Sorry, I have children around me. Okay. Let's try that again. Perfect. Yeah. So one of the cool things about, I guess, especially, I think what Elarian kind of provides for guys is, especially if you're looking at really upping the ante on like customer experience, just your customer experience or user experience, depending on what you're doing. I think that's something really important to keep in mind, even if you don't end up using Elarian or something. Creating that kind of unified customer experience as you build these apps. I think that's really where the goose lays the golden egg, right? We have the goose, it can write apps, it can deliver backends, it can do UI UX, but like unifying all these different touch points to make the customer happy and feel like it's one thing that they're dealing with, that's really the key, right? And the pain of this is kind of felt very deeply, especially with things like banks, with a lot of the traditional kind of businesses, where they're not able to track so many different events that they kind of provide a very like disjointed experience at the end of the day. And this is really the key to kind of like honing in on a really successful businesses. Yeah. It's looking good now.
All right, that's cool to know about what you can capture regarding the customer engagement and stuff. So I have another question, especially about what exactly to capture. So does it capture the whole Africa's Talking, everything that Africa's Talking does regarding calls, voice, SMS, and every other thing, and other APIs and stuff?
Yeah, it's actually quite ridiculous. Like it not only covers all of AT's stuff, but also improves what you can do with AT. So for example, on a USSD, we can now track sessions, set like activity by activity, like screen by screen. For calls, you can be able to measure length of calls. You can be able to we're trying to introduce stuff like sentiment analysis on the fly. That's a bit difficult to do, but it's something we're very open. We're trying to figure out, and at the same time, the craziest thing about it is that you don't even need AT. Maybe if you have your own Twilio integration, we can actually swap out AT for Twilio, right? And it will still provide you with the same data, right? We'll just have to kind of like play a bit more configuration. We have to do a bit more configuration, but it should provide the same amount of data, whether it's Nexmo. So what Elarian provides is this engine that can consume data points from so many different places. One of the interesting ones we are trying to capture is Instagram, because we feel there's a lot of business happening on Instagram, and there's not enough events being captured. Like what's the relationship between your WhatsApp messages with a business versus your Instagram activity versus maybe your expenditure on their platform. So you can now begin to, using only those 3 data points, you can begin to understand your customer in a much more interesting way. So you can see like, okay, if this person kind of like did a particular activity on my Instagram page and then showed up on my WhatsApp, what's the conversion time between them seeing my Instagram page, accessing my WhatsApp, and then making a payment? So you can look at some of these metrics and then try to optimize for them. How quickly can I get a customer to go from my Insta to my WhatsApp to pay me for a particular service? So it can be, just depends on kind of how you end up setting it up and what metrics really matter for the specific business that you're using, including web events as well. We're also integrating Google Analytics, so you can bring your own Google Analytics stuff, and you can now use all the data points to make very interesting decisions.
Oh, that's amazing. And one more thing.
Yeah.
So to make this available to the developers, do they have to have a subscription or maybe a payment to view all these at once?
Sorry?
So I'm asking, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I'm asking, to make all these engagements available to the developer, do they need to make any form of payment or subscription to it?
As of now, nothing. So what we generally have a free tier. What we end up charging you for is like machine learning stuff. So Elarian can also allow you to do. We essentially automate the process of you doing stuff like Spark jobs in the background. So we charge for things that will be consuming our compute. Everything else, if you already have a phone number, you already have all these things, you just start. And anyway, even the sandbox is free to play around with. So there's a sandbox, it's totally free to play around with. and you can still access the benefits of some of this data processing abilities as well, but at a smaller scale, definitely.
All right, that's great to know.
Let's see if my app is Wow. Today the demo gods are behaving very weirdly. Trying to ops connected. Okay, I don't know what the hell is going on. But what I can do actually to make this even more fun, there's a version of this that's actually available online. So let's pull this down to GitHub. So one of our friends, like, this thing sometimes is so crazy. This thing is sometimes so over the top, even for us, that we are still learning how to build apps with it. It's that serious. And we're hoping that we'll get better and better over time. Just because the idea that you could do this with somebody with data is very, especially because, you know, when you look at all the tools that we have right now, we can capture data from mostly online sources. We don't have the ability to capture data, like truly useful data, from offline sources, SMS and all these other places. So imagine what the possibilities are in Africa if you can combine what people are doing online and then map it into their offline activity. That's a whole different story. The next Bill Gates are probably on this call or something.
Yeah. So I think someone has a question. Benson is asking, there are no data storage charges.
No. So for data storage charges, at least as far as because you can see, if you go to the website, the pricing is not available just yet. So probably we are not going to charge you for data storage, simply because we understand you may need this data a bit later on. We're willing to take a bit of that cost, knowing that once you get the power of what this thing is capable of doing, like, this will really transform like a lot of the work you end up doing. If your app is, so we could, I guess some of the things we could say is, like, if your app has been active for a year, you haven't really done anything on it, we could kind of like delete the data. But generally, if you're an active user of the platform, we have no reason to delete the data. We'll keep the data as is. Yeah. And we allow you to export it in some way or form. So if maybe you want to kind of stop paying for the service and move on to better, maybe greener pastures you've seen somewhere else, we allow you to kind of like, you know, go in peace. You don't want war.
Yeah, so I see Kendi is also commenting that sounds like something to play around with tonight. I believe it's the project.
Yes, definitely. And even we provide a bit of tutorials. They're not as fully fledged as the original AT stuff. There's a lot of learning we are still undergoing even internally. So I think I think if you find anything that you find confusing, you can join us on Slack, or shoot me a message or something, and I'd be happy to answer what I can. But these are the basic tutorials that we kind of provide. We're hoping to have about 13 of them. And I don't know if that's an unlucky number, Friday the 13th, but all of this goes all the way from setting up a basic connection with Elarian to handling voice calls, handling all kinds of chats, managing customer data at its core, and also managing payments.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that GitHub repository, the Elarian GitHub repository rather, has a lot of interesting stuff. So even for some of the guys on the call who write Go, Java, PHP, I think we recently got a Ruby SDK, despite the fact that it's very challenging to kind of build TCP level applications on Ruby, but we're here now. Oh, and they're about, I think, even on the documentation, I think, or the website, I think, we provide, even on the documentation, we provide 3 sample apps that kind of give you an idea of what is going on. So whether it's one that combines USSD and payments, another one combines a mobile app with a backend that does payments and SMS, to another one that even simulates a whole ATM, right? So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there, and I think people can find a lot of useful stuff to play around with. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I don't know what happened here. Finally, it installed.
Happens a lot.
Yeah. All right. We have 10 minutes, so I think I can show the demo. I'll just share my whole screen because there's no need to be flipping around screens right now. Just a whole desktop. Okay. So let's confirm we're still connected to Elarian. It's fine. And what will we need? See how this pans out. The machine will not be happy with me today. Huzzah. Network request. All right. Let's see. Okay, I know what happened. Let me just to set up things. So the backend should be running. Sorry. For all you Android gurus, is there anything I need to do to allow this thing to talk to my? Last wheel. Right. So it seems my network isn't allowing me to make requests. But let's see if this will work. Ah, where did my app go? Okay, guys, I'll have to do this. Yeah. Everything is not on my side today, but what I think should try to be I just try to take away from this talk is that for us to kind of like be really good engineers and really valuable engineers, I think caring about that the end experience for the customer and at the same time caring about the business goals at the end of the day, I think that's something really powerful. It puts us at not just a normal developer standard, where now we kind of think about we're really thinking about the user, and also forces us to kind of attach ourselves to projects we truly do love, and we truly and allow us and allows us to help people truly in the way we feel is correct, you know. So yeah, I think that's kind of my parting shot in a way, but I'm open to more questions. I think next time I should actually stick to the machine I write code on. I don't write as much code on this as I should.
That's understood. Thank you so much for presenting, and thank you so much for the great insights about Elarian and what it does and how you can capture the customer actions and your plans to do it both online and offline. That would be a really nice adventure to do. So this is open to questions, and because I know Candy is here, I'll pick Candy to say something.
Oh, hi guys. I really hi Limo. That was a really nice session, even though I joined a bit late. I've heard about Eli. If I say it, I'm going to mispronounce it, but it's something I was actually really looking forward to playing around with, because I've seen you guys hype it, and I like things that are being hyped. So yeah. I think I'll give my feedback because I'm following you everywhere, and tell you like how I've interacted with it, and yeah, I give my feedback. Sorry, I have a few.
Hello.
Sure.
All right, thank you so much, Ken. Okay, Wagole,
Hello,
do you want to say?
Yes, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When
Yes.
I saw this Elarian stuff my first time, I thought maybe I can integrate it with my system. Like I was using Safaricom APIs to integrate money APIs, Alip and M-Pesa. So when I saw this, I thought maybe I'm going to solve my problem. But my question is, how can I integrate it with my application?
Oh yeah, okay. So especially for anyone who's coming from the Daraja APIs, especially. So all you have to do quite literally is when you can send an email to payments@africastalking.com. We'll send you a simple form, and you essentially tell Safaricom, we'll be managing your pay bill, right? From there henceforth, you don't have to do anything else. You just log into our dashboard, and that's where you'll be managing everything. So when you look at our APIs, even just from the AT side, it's as simple as you create a variable called payments, attach it to that particular module, and then you're like, okay, dot mobile checkout, and the checkout shows up. Dot B2C, mobile B2C, pass in the parameters and send. It's that simple. And that's something that maybe we haven't made as much noise about, but it's something really powerful for us and for you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for the answer. I hope that answers your question, Wagole. So I'll pick another one last person, Joyce Nyambura. Would you like to say something regarding the session, anything you learned, or any question you have?
For now, I don't have anything to say because I've joined the meeting just right now.
Okay. So probably you can tell us what you do currently.
Okay, currently I'm a student at KC.
Okay, thank you so much for that, and thank you for attending this session. So I'll pick one last person who was really looking forward to this session. That's Gilbert Ngeno. What's your take regarding this, and any random question that you might have for Anthony? Hey Gilbert, if you're speaking, maybe you're on mute because we can't hear you. Can anyone else hear him? Because I can't hear him.
No, I can't as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. Maybe you'll pass your feedback later on, but he was really looking forward to this session. Thank you for attending, and thank you everyone. Yes, Evan?
I'm sorry. I just want to ask, it's my first time joining this meeting, and I just want to know how often do you have these kind of meetings here? I think it's my first day hearing about the Elarian, yeah. And I'm quite interested. It's quite interesting, and I wish to be part of this.
All right, so thank you so much for that. And regarding Elarian, maybe Anthony, do you have anything to tell him regarding other meetings aimed towards Elarian in specific?
Oh yes. So if you want to find out when the next, so today we've actually had a meetup today at a physical meetup at the AT offices, and we'll keep on doing that as frequently as possible, maybe 2-3 times. But you can go to community.elarian.com. There you'll kind of like see the upcoming events, where we'll be, and we'll also be posting like the different recordings that we have, so that you can also just rewatch any of those videos. You have to have a pay bill from Safaricom. I think there's we used to do the application process for guys, but we realized it's a bit tedious, especially when you have a lot of people, and that we only have about 3-4 people working on some of these products, so maybe quite hectic. So what we encourage you to do is kind of like go through the process, get your pay bill set up with Safaricom, and then come to us. And you shouldn't have to worry about Daraja and anything else. You just focus now on getting your stuff done. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for answering that. So I hope that answers your question, Evans. And regarding our Flutter Kisumu meetups, we do them monthly. So basically, in the next month, in August, we'll have another meetup on another topic. So thank you everyone else for joining, and thank you Anthony for presenting. It was very engaging how you handled explaining what Elarian is and what you guys aim to do, and how it can help developers track their customers' engagements, and how we can use that data to do or maybe make meaningful decisions. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for presenting.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right. So every other person, thank you for attending. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye.